This conference will now be recorded.
I'm learning. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for attending. I'm calling tonight's special meeting of the Peapack and Gladstone Borough Council to order. Can you please read the sunshine notice?
Pursuant to the Open Public Meeting Act, adequate notice of this meeting date was published in the Courier News and the Burnsville News on January 13th, 2022, and posted at the municipal complex in the Borough Library. Action may be taken.
Thank you. Please stand for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America,
and
to the republic which is stand,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilman Caminetti.
Here.
Council President Corigliano.
Here.
Councilwoman Dietrich.
Here.
Councilman Lemma.
Here.
Councilwoman Murphy.
Here.
Councilman Sweeney.
Here.
Mayor Skinner.
I am here. Thank you. Public comments, 5 minutes per person on non-agenda items. It's policy of the Borough Council that all public comments on an issue shall be limited to 5 minutes per person. Comments may be made on any non-agenda item non-agenda subject pertaining to borough issues. Comments pertaining to public hearings should be saved for that section of the agenda. There'll be no debating between residents. Comments should be addressed to the mayor and council on your device that you are speaking on. So again, I ask members of the public to please silence your devices, whether phones or computers, unless you're speaking. And when you do speak, I need you to identify yourself and your address. Any members of the public wish to comment on any non-agenda items? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment section. I'm going to move to move past the old business. I want to do the resolution first. That shouldn't take more than a few seconds. So resolution 33-22, resolution for employee appointment for the Borough of Peapack and Gladstone for the year 2022.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
That's just to reappoint our special, which is required by law. Have a roll call vote, please.
Councilman Caminetti.
Yes.
Council President Corigliano.
Yes.
Councilwoman Dietrich.
Yes.
Councilman Lemma.
Yes.
Councilwoman Murphy.
Yes.
Councilman Sweeney.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right. Moving on to old business, the rescue truck.
All right, well, I'll start off. Basically, this meeting is a special meeting for kind of a continuation of last week's discussion about rescue truck purchase for the fire department. After kind of a long discussion on the different options and what the fire department needed and wanted and so forth, we as a council each discussed what we felt like was the best choice. And nearly unanimously, we decided that the Ferrera rescue truck, of which we had received some details on, was a good choice for our fire department based on numerous items. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd say the top items were both the price and the time to delivery, both to be able to deliver a rescue truck to the fire department in a relatively timely manner when they've been waiting so long, and secondly, to put a little bit of temporal distance between this purchase and the upcoming pumper truck, which we will be needing here pretty much immediately. So after kind of going around and each of us sharing our opinions, the fire department, Chief McDermott spoke for them and basically had was disappointed with that choice. And so we decided to kind of go back, give them an opportunity to talk to the fire department, as well as for us to get some more in-depth numbers comparing the two. So as we said multiple times last week, comparing apples to apples. And so thank you so much to Mark for the work that he did, and we can review the numbers. I see that he sent out something with a third option here, a payment option this afternoon. So Mark, do you want to talk about that now, or do you want me to open up to the fire department? The one thing I will add is I did speak with Chief McDermott on Friday. It was a brief discussion, but the fire department had met on Thursday. And although it sounds like a lot of them were disappointed that they didn't get the support for the Pierce truck that they were hoping for. The fire department did decide kind of to accept the council's willingness to purchase, for the town to purchase the Ferrera truck. So again, there was apparent disappointment from the fire department that they didn't get the Pierce, but they did decide to go forward with the Ferrera.
Jamie, to answer your question, I'm happy to go last with the
Okay.
finance only because it ties into the ordinance, which is the next order of business.
Okay. Well, again, the fire department did decide to move forward with Ferrera. We can open it up to hear from the individuals from the fire department that are on the call here tonight. If individuals would like some additional information from them. Anyone? All right, let's move ahead and talk about the finances.
Okay, Nancy, I need to share my screen, please. Okay, can everybody see what I'm looking at right now?
Yes.
Yes.
So at the request of the council, I did a financial analysis for two reasons, because there was a question when we were discussing this last week of the warranty and additional warranty costs on the two vehicles that were examined, as well as a more overall and more important discussion, and that is, how are we going to pay for this? It's one thing to pass an ordinance appropriating a capital expenditure. It's another thing to have the money to do that. And we don't have the money right now. We can come up with the money as we do with any large capital expenditure. And I have a few proposals which I'll review in a second. As you can see on my spreadsheet, I have a column B and column C. I analyzed each of the two vehicles. And the Pierce Enforcer, and Greg, thank you for your quick note. I guess I got too caught up in automotive technology, automotive history with Pierce Arrow, but Pierce Enforcer was one vehicle and the Ferrara Igniter was the second vehicle. And excuse me. And there was again a question about the warranty and were we looking at an apples to apples comparison. So I called the sales rep from Firefighter One, who I met in Atlantic City at the New Jersey League of Municipalities Conference, and who I spent some time with learning about their franchise and as well as the manufacturing company. And the bottom line is of one warranty is that the Pierce, and again, somewhat unnecessary conversation only because I understand the fire department has signed off on the Ferrara. But if you were looking at these apples to apples, the question that was addressed last week, the Pierce comes with a 1-year factory bumper to bumper warranty, excluding those items or components of the truck that come with their own warranties. And the Ferrara comes with a base warranty of 2 years. So it was represented on Tuesday that the Ferrara had a 5-year bumper to bumper. But in examining the specifications and calling a couple of contacts, I don't believe that's correct. I believe that the specifications that were provided for the Pierce were in fact a 3-year warranty. It was the 1-year base and a 2-year add-on. And in fact, in the specs, it even says 3 years. Ferrara was 2 years, so there was a differential there. I forwarded to the council under separate cover in my talking to the sales representative. They offered to extend the warranty on the Ferrara bumper warranty. I'm sorry.
Mark, can you stop for 1 second? Not to interrupt your presentation, but can I ask the callers that are on the line to please mute your devices because we're getting feedback. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I didn't hear that.
No, I was asking if the other callers that are on the line, if they could mute their devices because I'm getting feedback from somebody somewhere. So
understood. No, I didn't hear the feedback. I guess because I was talking. Anyway, if it happens again, interrupt me, please. Anyway, bottom line is the Ferrara reseller or dealer offered to extend the warranty at no additional cost to 3 years. So we are talking apples to apples on that. Delivery time for the Ferrara is 11 months. They require a letter of intent, which the borough can give almost immediately. And the pricing is good through January 26th. So moving down, and I'm now in section 1, you can see where I'm pointing with my mouse. The quoted price, okay, and this is contract pricing for, and I'm only going to review the Ferrara numbers at this point, unless everybody wants to hear me read 2 sets of numbers, was $733,000. If the borough prepays 25% of that as a prepayment, you get a discount of $3,650 for a net price of the vehicle of $729,350. And if you were buying the vehicle for cash, be it the Ferrara or the Pierce, which is this column here, there's overall net a price differential of about $38,000. Now, more importantly, let's have a conversation about how we're going to pay for this. So I presented 3 options to the council. Options B and C are very similar. Let's start with option 1. The typical way a municipal government would pay for something like this is they would borrow the entire amount. And what they would do is they would go out for bans for a period of time. A ban is an abbreviation for bank anticipation note. And what that means is you borrow the money for 1 year and then you roll it over and you borrow it for another year. And typically you keep these bans going until you accumulate more than $1 million in debt. And at that point, you then go out to a bond, okay? A bond, we all know what bonds are. Municipal bonds, or munis as they're called. They're typically not cost effective to do for less than $1 million, but above $1 million, you typically do them for. They are costly. There's a lot of legal work and bond companies involved and so forth and so on. So let's look at the numbers here. And again, I'm looking at the second column numbers. If I take the net price of the Ferrara and assume that it's going to, and assuming we're paying for the whole thing with borrowed money, 3 years at about 2.5% interest would be $54,000 or $55,000 in interest. Then I'm estimating that to go out to a bond at year 3, at the end of year 3, would cost about $40,000. And I'm allocating 75% of that $1 million bond cost to this purchase, which is only reasonable. And then I ran the calculation of how much interest we would pay on that money for the fire truck at 3.5% over 20 years. And again, these interest rates are good guesses. They may or may not be accurate when the time comes for this. And to afford the overall lifetime cost of purchasing the Ferrara rescue truck, assuming we borrowed all the money, would be $1.125 million. Okay, that's what it would cost us over the life of the truck. Over the life of the loans. So I started thinking a little creatively. I am not, so everyone knows, I am not in favor of long-term debt. In fact, I want to reduce our town's debt because ultimately reduces taxes. I don't want to take on additional debt. So I came up with a creative solution, which I would like to present to you. I will tell you in advance, I'm advocating it. It is an option, and before I even go into it, I am telling you right now, this is a loan. It is not. I'm not looking to raid a fund. I'm looking for a win-win situation. So what I came up with was, we have currently $253,000 in our capital improvement fund. I propose that we make the down payment of the truck at 25% of its cost using capital improvement fund dollars. Okay, then for the balance of the loan, which is approximately 500, balance of the truck purchase cost, $550,000. I propose that we come up with an arrangement, assuming it's legally feasible, and I'm told it is. Other towns have done this. This all came up pretty quickly to me, so I don't have all the details, and I can't promise that this will work. But we have right now approximately $1.7 million sitting on our Open Space Recreation and Trust Fund, Open Space and Recreation Trust Fund. I don't see that $1.7 million being used in the next 4 or 5 years. So what I'm proposing to do, and by the way, that open space and recreation trust fund money is really making absolutely no money right now. It's making no interest. We have it in the bank. CDs are paying nothing. CDs are really the only way we can invest. We can't invest in stock markets and so forth. So I thought of a way where it could be a win-win for the borough and for the trust fund. And what I came up with is borrowing the balance of the money, that is less the down payment of $550,000, coming up with an agreement or a bond where we borrow that money from our own trust fund and we pay the trust fund interest. Okay, so at the end of this, the trust fund actually comes out with more money. Okay, and it would be a callable on-demand loan. Again, I still have to verify if this is feasible. So should an open space and recreation project comes up that needs that money, the borough would immediately go out, ban for the money, okay, and immediately pay back. So it would never be an imposition on the open space and recreation trust fund. However, what this solution does is it allows us to pay, it allows the open space recreation trust fund to earn interest for the next couple of years on its money, or at least on $550,000 of its money, where it's not right now. And it prevents the borough from having to go out and borrow from an outside source. And what I would propose to do is figure at the end of the second year of the truck's life, meaning from the moment it's purchased, figure it's delivered a year out. At year 2, we pay off 1/3 of the balance, year 3, 1/3 of the balance, and at year 4, 1/3 of the balance with interest. So let's look at those numbers and try to understand them. The net price of the vehicle, and again, we're talking Ferrari here, you can see Pierce on this side, $730,000. We would be looking to finance $547,000. That's the difference between the purchase price and the down payment of 25%, which we have the money to pay right now. Then I did calculations of interest on the loan, how much we would be paying in interest. And in present value dollars, and keep in mind, as you'll see, I'm using always present value dollars in all these calculations. If I'm not going to get into a discussion, it's not really relevant at this moment. But I'm not talking future values. I'm not talking time value of money. Just know that $1 today is worth more than $1 5 years from now. So total vehicle cost, paying interest to the Open Space Recreation and Trust Fund of $745,000 for savings of approximately $377,000 over borrowing the entire amount. Now, this is creative thinking. It's a way of using money that we have sitting around that we have no immediate purpose for at this moment, but there could well be one a year from now. We've been very fortunate with our open space purchases. The last one was actually 100% financed from outside sources. We really had almost little to no cost for it. However, another similar option is to borrow the balance of the money to pay for the truck using bank bans, bank anticipation notes, and to pay those off over the same period of time. We've done this before. We borrowed a large sum. I forgot what it was. Anthony Soriano was chair of finance. I was second. We advocated for this, and we actually never went to bond. We simply paid off the debt over 5 years. So in this scenario, it would cost a little bit more money because bans are going to be more expensive. Plus, there's going to be some soft costs allowed. And the Ferrera truck would cost us $756,000 over its life in a total cost in present value dollars. Now, I need to make the council acutely aware of something. Either of these two options carries a debt service. It carries a debt service in years 2, 3, and 4. That would be roughly, assuming we place the order for the Ferrara almost immediately, that would mean 2023, 2024, 2025. And that debt service would be the balance roughly divided by 3 plus the interest and whatever soft costs there are. Figure $200,000 a year. That is going to be a line on our operating budget. That's where it's going to come from. Just like any other debt that the borough has, we pay for it right out of the operating budget as is required by law. So the council needs to be aware that there's going to be a financial impact for a total of 5 years from 2022, up until 2025 in order to pay for this truck in the way I'm advocating, and in order to get the price of the vehicle or the apparatus to $750,000 versus borrowing the entire amount and its lifetime cost being $1.123 million for the purchase. That is a summary of what I'm suggesting. I would tell you, you'll see the ordinance. Nancy asked me how to word the ordinance. You're going to see I worded it to leave an option open so the council can make a decision. I would suggest that we memorialize this decision at our next meeting. If the council needs time to talk or think about it, I don't think we have to make that decision tonight, but it would be nice to know so I can do some further investigating as how best to do this. I've gotten a couple different opinions from our auditors and from some other people in government that it could be a simple loan with a written agreement. The one auditor said, oh no, you have to issue a ban to yourself. I'm not quite sure, and it requires investigation only because it's not very commonly done. But it provides a mechanism for, again, some creative financing to reduce the overall cost of the vehicle substantially over purchasing it fully with borrowed dollars. Any questions?
Bottom line though is we could do the down payment without having to worry about any of this stuff until, I don't mean months down the road, but certainly next meeting or meeting after.
Mayor, that's absolutely correct. We can go out and issue an LOI tomorrow and commit to making the down payment cost immediately. The down payment immediately.
I have a question about the open space fund. Can you remind me, the current total is 1.7 million. Can you remind me how much is coming out in the coming year in 2022 for the Liberty Park project? GP, that might be more in your wheelhouse.
I believe that I'm 90% sure. I couldn't reach Dale today. The number I give you of 1.7 is net of that.
That's without that.
It's net. It's net of the Liberty cost numbers out of there already.
Okay.
Jamie, at the end of 2020, we had a balance of about 2.5 or 2.6 million dollars in open space trust. If you take off a mill for Liberty Park, you're down to 1.5. You add in the 230,000 that we raised through taxation that went into that fund, you're at 1.7. That's how I came up with the number.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to be clear.
Okay. Again, I need to say it because people interpret things in funny ways sometimes. I am not suggesting that the council or myself or any of us raid the fund. We are not doing that. I am simply looking for a mechanism to temporarily borrow from the fund during a period when the fund has absolutely no commitments for that money, pay the fund interest to make the fund even higher, and make it callable. So that if the need came up to purchase a unique piece of property on a fire sale or something like that, the borough would immediately go out for bans, get the money, pay back the Open Space and Recreation Trust Fund, and then be borrowing the money from a bank.
All right, I understand that. I just happen, being part of open space and farmland preservation, I am aware we have a couple projects in the pipeline. As we all know, that pipeline takes some time. Probably one project will come up in a year. And they usually end up costing the borough, and we were lucky with the last two. Well, for sure one that nothing came out of the municipal budget, and very likely when the Tucker property closes, that won't cost the town anything. Very likely we'll get Highlands money for that. But there is another one in the works that's probably somewhere around $250,000. And then there are other projects, but again, very likely 2, 3, 4 years down the line where the municipality would actually have to have some financial output.
Understood, but keep in mind that the current balance of the Open Space Trust Fund estimated is $1.7 million. I'm proposing that we borrow 12 months from that, we borrow $550,000.
Oh, I understand that. I'm just trying to be an open book about it. That's all.
Okay. And again, everyone be aware, there's still some challenges to this. I don't know if it's going to fly. Moving on real quickly. If you go to
Mark John Sweeney here. I mean, I know number one, that I'm not, I can't speak to the state, the enabling statute for the Open Space Trust Fund, but I know it was in the last 5 years or so, we revised our own statute, our own ordinance in terms of the fund to expand it so that it was clear that it could be used for recreational purposes. And there were a couple other tweaks that were made to it. To my knowledge, that fund is, as currently situated, is not in a position to be able to lend money under our own ordinances. But I guess I have just a bigger question. In the unlikely event there was a default, how does the Open Space Fund, Trust Fund is not a separate entity. How would that work? We'll be like a scorpion stinging ourselves, I think.
Why would the borough ever default on a debt to itself?
I'm just saying. I mean, how does I mean, if we did, and I'm not saying you, me, or any person up here right now, but if the borough did, how does the Open Space Fund collect its money? If it's a loan that's subject to repayment.
John, I can't answer that because the Open Space Trust Fund is a account of the boroughs, and the borough's borrowing from one account into another account. So I'm not quite sure I can answer that. You know, if the borough defaults and goes bankrupt, I think we have some larger issues to address. And
No disagreement there. But if you borrow your own money from from an IRA, if you don't pay it back, there are penalties. Are there penalties in whatever legal authority that this is being based on?
That is up to us. When we write this agreement up, if we choose to implement a penalty for not making the payment on time, we can certainly include that as part of the agreement.
Okay, and then the only other thing I have that I'm also concerned about is the language that's in our ordinance is based on referendum. And I'm not sure whether, and last time we modified it, we went out to referendum. And I'm looking at this and saying, if we're going to modify, the use of the Open Space Fund, consistent with prior practice, we would go out to referendum.
I don't think that's necessary, John. Based on my conversation with our auditor, I believe there's already a precedent where towns have borrowed from themselves when they have excessively large trust funds that are not immediately going to be used, and they've borrowed money from themselves. So there is a precedent for governments doing this. And also, I don't know where in our ordinances it says that the trust fund can't lend or make investments with its money. In fact, our ordinance allows for us to take our trust funds and buy CDs, although CDs don't pay at this moment.
It doesn't say we can make loans, but it specifically enumerates what we can use the fund for.
Yes, but it doesn't say we can't make loans, so I have to presume that says that we could do something like this, especially based on precedents of other towns. Again, there's some research that needs to be done if that was an option. Again, and the only purpose of that is very simple. The only purpose of our option C, which I'm about to tell you about briefly, is very simply we're paying interest to our own fund, not to a bank. So we're in essence keeping the interest in-house for future uses of open space, rather than paying it to an institution. There's the advantage.
Mark, does the council have to make a decision on that end of the arrangement tonight?
No, we have almost a year to make that decision.
Okay.
And it required, I only got hit with this last week and it was a busy work week. So other than me speaking to the auditor and one other person I know in municipal finance, I still think there needs to be some research to make sure that is a feasible option.
Mark, this is GP. Just very quickly, I want to applaud you for your creative thinking and for the short turnaround on this. It's very helpful and you walking us through this. It sounds like there's a reasonable prospect that this might be an option of taking a loan from the Open Space Trust and Recreation Fund. Obviously, it needs to be fleshed out and legal advice needs to be gotten and the auditors. But I'm very leery of anything that jeopardizes in any way, shape, or form our credit rating. So obviously, we need to make sure that we get it right. But it sounds like it might be a very good option. And the option C as a second choice or as a fallback position doesn't sound too shabby. when you stack up the numbers against the 100% financing option, the option number A. So let's work through it.
So let me just talk about that option, everyone. For a little bit more money, it is more money, and for paying the interest to a bank rather than to ourselves, the third option, which is our fallback position, is to finance the remainder of the purchase, the balance of the vehicle cost, using bank bands, bank anticipation notes. Okay, so I ran a projection just to see what that would cost. These are the numbers here. I'm not going to read them all to you. Obviously, it's a little bit more than borrowing from ourselves, and we don't keep the interest monies in-house, but it is absolutely a feasible option. And should the prior option I just presented to you not work out, this is the way we would go. And wait, I should say that. This is the way we should go, assuming the council is amenable to my pay-as-you-go thinking, okay, and not going out for bonds for 20 years, plus the years of bans, keeping the overall cost of the vehicle lower, and then adopting this policy of keeping our debt and reducing our total debt down and down and down. It won't happen in my term here, everyone, but I would sure love to see our little borough get like Berners, where we have no long-term debt. I think that's a sustainable model for us going forward.
Mark, just very quickly, this is GP again. Under options B and C, as discussed and described, we would have all of the debt satisfied in 5 years. We would have that truck paid for in 5 years, correct?
4 years.
4 years. Thank you.
That's correct, 4 years. Jamie, that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
No, but I mimic GP's acknowledgement, and thank you so much for crunching these numbers. It's really, really helpful to see for me. And I agree. I think that having the option of paying this in 4 years is a lot better for the borough financially, especially knowing that we have other large purchases down the road and trying to get this one paid for. Thank you.
You're welcome, Jamie. Thank you for the acknowledgement. Let me point something out about the pay-as-you-go model. There is a factor here that is not shown on this spreadsheet. I have it noted, but it's not shown, and that is the time value of money. We all know that $1 today will buy you more than $1 tomorrow, $1 a year from now, or $1 5 years from now, or for that matter, $1 15 years from now. I could have run this model showing what the value would have been in future dollars, and the prices would have even been higher for longer term debt. The reason I point this out is I want everyone to just keep in mind and remember, when you pay for something over time, it costs a heck of a lot more than paying for it in a relatively short amount of time. And that is what is in the best interest of our borough's financial health, as well as that of our residents.
Anybody else? Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. I guess we will move on to, that's it on the fire truck or the rescue truck, Jamie?
Does anyone have any comments? Don, did you want to share any comments?
No, I think if there were no comments from the fire company, and Mark, again, a very creative approach, and one that is a win-win for everybody, including the Recreation and Open Space Trust Fund. They get more money, we pay less money, the banks get fewer fees. So it's an excellent approach.
Okay. All right. So moving on to new business. Any new business? Okay, seeing none, moving on to ordinances. Introduction of ordinance 1108, 2022, an ordinance appropriating certain monies held by the borough Peapack and Gladstone for the acquisition of a rescue fire truck for the borough Peapack and Gladstone Volunteer Fire Department. Do I have a motion to introduce ordinance 1108-2022?
So moved.
And a second, please?
Second.
Roll call vote.
Mayor, since there's a pause, may I make a comment, please?
Sure.
Everyone will notice the wording of this ordinance is actually a little vague as far as the balance of the fire truck purchase. As you can see, I worded it to allow up to $250,000 from the CIF, where the number is actually about $198,000. And then I just put in the remainder from lending and grants. So I just wanted to mention something about that. Grants, if you want to call it that. As everyone knows, there's the American Recovery Act. Okay? Maybe I should even mention this before when I went over the spreadsheet. But anyway, everyone knows there's the American Recovery Act. PPAC and Gladstone is poised to receive a net of about $260,000 from the federal government or from American Recovery Act. And we've actually received half of it already, and it's sitting in our account. Originally, the use of that money was very restricted. Things like very specific capital improvements, building housing, giving grants to businesses, giving bonuses to lower paid employees, things like that. We made the conscious decision to hold off on doing anything with that money because we believe the guidance on the spending of that money has changed. In fact, it has changed. I received a note from our auditor on Friday indicating, it's on the spreadsheet as a footnote, that now they're allowing those monies to be used for a fire truck purchase. Okay, it still needs to be vetted out because we did approve part of the monies through ordinance previously, but it might actually be in our benefit that we accidentally never did this second ordinance. But if that is the case, and we can discuss this down the road, I'll bring this back to you all. I would propose that we consider using the entire amount of the American Recovery Act funds to pay down this purchase. So when that day comes, we'll discuss it.
Okay.
Really quickly, Mark, was that 260,000 earmarked for anything else at this point, or still kind of up in the air of what we were going to use it for?
Up in the air, we had no specific purpose for it.
Okay.
It's in so many words, found money to us.
Right.
But when they first issued the check and they sent out the guidance was very limited. I was stretched. We would have been spending on some, if we followed the original guidance and went to spend the money immediately, we would have been hard pressed to really find, we'd be spending on something we probably didn't immediately need.
Right. I reviewed it today. I mean, now the wording is still fairly vague about, fire assistance to firefighter grants, staffing for fire and emergency response. But you got indication that we could use it for apparatus?
Yes, I did.
That's great.
I'm happy to read that to you if you'd like to hear what it was.
No. I believe you.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Mark, for that. Roll call vote.
Councilman Caminiti,
You're on mute. EP.
Yes.
Council President Corigliano,
Yes.
Councilwoman Dietrich,
Yes.
Councilman Lemma,
Yes.
Councilwoman Murphy,
Yes.
Councilman Sweeney.
Aye.
Okay. Ordinance 1108, 2022 is introduced and shall be published in summary in the Burnsville News, and the public hearing for said ordinance will be held on February 8th at 7 p.m. or shortly thereafter. Thank you. Okay, moving on to public comments, 3 minutes per person for agenda items only. It's a policy of the Borough Council that all public comments on an issue shall be limited to 3 minutes per person. There'll be no debating between residents or people commenting. Comments should be addressed to the mayor and council on your device. Again, I ask number one, that people please turn off your devices unless you're speaking, or mute your devices. And also if you do speak, I need your name and address for the record. So any members of the public wish to have make any comments on agenda items? Okay, hearing or seeing nobody wanted to make comments, so close the public comment section. Moving on to executive session, resolution 34-22, authorization for executive session for certain specified purposes, 1 personnel. I have a motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Caminetti,
Yes.
Council President Corigliano,
Yes.
Councilwoman Dietrich,
Yes.
Councilman Lemma,
Yes.
Councilwoman Murphy,
Yes.
Councilman Mimi.
Yes.
Okay, action may or may not be taken after executive session. So I'd like to thank the members of the public. We're going into executive session, so I guess you're gonna have to sign off or we'll sign you off. But thank you very much for attending. As soon as the executive session is over, we'll reconvene to the public session, but where action may or may not be taken. Thank you very much, everybody. Council people, stay on, please.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, we are now back in open session. Is there any further business of the council? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you. The next meeting of the mayor and council will be held on Tuesday, January 25th, 2022 at 7 p.m. via the GoToMeeting conferencing system. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Everyone, thanks.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Everyone.